Welcome to the OT. I am Elise Jesse, and I am joined by the Tim McGee. You all know and love him well. Tim, we started the show with you. We have to end the show with you. And in our first episode, we were talking about managing expectations heading into the 2022 season. Did you expect the Bengals at the start of the year to be in the AFC Championship game in the first place?
I think I did. I mean, I thought the possibility. So I wouldn't say I'm a betting man and will say, oh, they're definitely going. No, but I thought they had the talent. I thought they had if all things went well. I didn't think they had to be as lucky as they were last year in order to achieve the AFC Championship as a goal. So it wasn't surprising that they made it. Again, they're going to be one of the top four teams in the AFC for, from last year. I would say the window was probably another 2 years.
Well, yeah, I feel like everyone is kind of going through an AFC Championship hangover, because then I felt like there were a lot, at least nationally, who didn't expect the Bengals to be good this season. They were talking about the Super Bowl hangover and how usually, the next season teams have a lot of trouble because other teams see the tape and they understand how to play them and how to make life harder for a team that goes to the Super Bowl. But I feel like a lot of those expectations for a lot of people did change. Yes, they started 0-2, as you remember, and people were thinking there's no way. There's no way that they are going to get as far into the playoffs as they did last year. And then suddenly they go on a, 3-month win streak?
Yeah.
Making the AFC Championship. And then by the time they're playing Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, people were expecting the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game. And there has been a lot of talk about Tim officiating.
It's last year. I got to go back to last year when they made it to the Super Bowl. No one complained about the officials then. And when I talked to, and of course I talked to people all around the country, and when I talked to the Chiefs fans and the Chiefs ex-players, I venture to say the Bengals got their fair share of the calls. So, yeah, those things are going to level out. And whether it's viable, true, validated or not, bad calls are a part of the game. And if you're going to look at the bad calls that the officials did have, you also got to look at the fact that the Bengals did something that was totally out of character, outside of the box, that they had not done during their success pattern, as you said, for 3 months. That is, they had blunders on the offense when they had the ball with 2 minutes left. They had 2nd and 3, and they weren't able to execute and capitalize on that. Then the offense gave the Kansas City Chiefs 40 seconds. You gave Patrick Mahomes, the most valuable player of the National Football League. You gave him 40 seconds. So what the hell did you expect? Then special teams. So offense made their blunders. Special teams comes and make their blunders and give up a long return. And then here comes the defense. And I know everyone wants to talk about the push out of bounds on Patrick Mahomes, but the byproduct of Patrick Mahomes being out of bounds is someone lost containment. So all 3 phases of the game let them down in the last time that all 3 phases was on the football field. So it was uncharacteristic. I didn't really, I raised the bar, and at least you could not have told me when Joe Burrow was coming on the field with 2 minutes left to go to the Super Bowl with a timeout. I was sitting there going, yeah, baby. We're going to Arizona.
I think everyone was.
Come on now. So if you want to blame the officials. That's just basically being a spoiled sport and not wanting to be accountable that your team blew it. Our team blew it. They had their chances. They blew it.
I think I do want to address the play with Joseph Osai hitting Patrick Mahomes out of bounds. I know Osai was asked about this, and Osai, he was very direct about it. He didn't know how far or if they were out of bounds when he did put his hands on the quarterback, and you could tell he felt awful about it. And I will tell you, Tim, in my 10 years of covering this team in this building, I have never seen a teammate like BJ Hill did with Osai stand next to another guy and deflect questions and essentially protect him from questions that he deemed unfair as a veteran. I thought that was very interesting to see from BJ Hill, and I really enjoyed watching that, even as a media member. What did you think of it?
Well, there was two phases of that. If we're going to report it, the first phase was they kind of left him out there hanging when he first went to the sideline. I was, hugely disappointed in that, but I understand, and I understood it. I didn't necessarily point fingers because when something like that happens, it was kind of reflecting all the way back to when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and we were in the Super Bowl and Joe Montana threw the pass to John Taylor. I remember our reaction. We got back on the field and actually it was the intro of the telecast. They were showing me on the sideline, on the field with my head down and dejected. So I get it. You don't really know how to control your emotions right after something like that football devastating happens. So, again, you can look at it, you can measure it, you can say, well, what if this should have happened? But, I always hear coming from the locker room that this is a band of brothers and they really do care for each other. And, after the kind of the first impactful emotional outburst came, I think they did look and turn to him and try to console him and give him the uplift and support that he so deserved because he played one hell of a game.
He did.
That's what's overshadowing that one play is overshadowing that fact that he played a hell of a game.
He was all over the place.
Yes, he was. And he was, remember something on that play, that was a hustle play. He was on the other side. He was blocked on the other side. He ran all the way across the field to make a play. And unfortunately, like you said, you get one of these 6'6", 280 pounds mammoth of men, you get them running downhill. You don't look at the stop sign and say, oh, I'm supposed to stop right now. The adrenaline was flowing. It happened. It just happened at a horrible, horrific time for the football team. But, those one of those plays that if you're a coach, you hear him say, hey, that's being aggressive. You'll take that, just maybe not in that moment. So I love the fact that the teammates are rallied around him. And, unfortunately, he has a long offseason to, really get that in his head. And I was really worried. Did he hurt his knee on that play?
He got an MRI on Monday. I'm not totally sure exactly what the outcome of that was, but I would expect him to be okay by 2023.
Yeah, because I wasn't necessarily more worried about the damn play and the outcome of the game.
Than his knee, yeah.
His knee buckled big time, and you saw him grimacing in pain right after that. So, I worry about the individual more so than the outcome of the game because there'll be more opportunities for this team to come back bigger, better, and stronger and healthier.
Yes, I would say so as well, especially if they are able to reach an extension with Joe Burrow, reach a contract agreement. Zach Taylor said that right now is the time internally when they're talking about an extension with Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow has said throughout the year that when his time in Cincinnati, during that time, he considers the window to a Super Bowl to be open always. If we look around the AFC North, Deshaun Watson, the Browns, they guaranteed him $30 million over 5 years, fully guaranteed contract there. And then when you look in Baltimore, Tim, you see that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they're kind of at a standstill. And that's really the sticking point for Lamar that's being reported is he wants a fully guaranteed contract. And the Ravens are not willing, it sounds like, to budge on that. And I'm wondering if the Bengals now, they seem to have switched a little bit. Like they seem to have made a lot of positive changes in the front office as far as the direction they want to go, what they're willing to do to win at this point in time. And I wouldn't be totally shocked if the Bengals did fully guarantee Joe Burrow's contract. But what do you think?
Well, I think Katie Brown, Mike Brown, led by Mike Brown and Troy Blackburn and Elizabeth and the entire Brown family, they have one thing in common outside of the DNA. They have common sense, and they have the pulse of the city and the pulse of the NFL community. And unless they just so happen to get hit by a meteor that knocks them tone deaf, Joe Burrow will be paid his market value, of which he's going to establish himself, just like Lamar Jackson is establishing his market value right now. And when you think about this, Lamar Jackson is a MVP. He has that under his belt. Deshaun Watson just shows you what will happen if you trade a quarterback, the value of a quarterback, the value of, you think about Deshaun Watson, and I know it's been well chronicled of the acquisitions and the situations that he's gone under, but just think the Cleveland Browns were able to give up all that guaranteed $240 million just to get that type of talent. You think there's teams not out there chomping at the bits for Lamar Jackson? So with Joe Burrow, we're just going to hear one day that Joe Burrow has signed as an extension for $1.8 billion over the next 2 days. The contract will be fully guareguaranteed, renegotiated in 3 days. It's going to happen. The question, I think what we will be talking about is what happens to the rest of the team when the Brinks truck backs up to Paycor Stadium and leaves empty. How are they going to, figure out the Jermaine Pratts, the Tee Higgins, and the Jamar Chases of the world?
Yeah, and that was my next question to you. Do you feel like this might be the most important offseason in Bengals franchise history, knowing that there is an extension for Joe Burrow to be expected, and then they have to deal with, other contracts that are coming up. Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, Pratt, Bell, Bates. I mean, Pratt and Bates, they're both homegrown dudes, and you've got to make a decision as far as like staying under the cap and which players will help the team the next season to reach the Super Bowl again, because now that's the expectation for them. Where do you see them going? And do you think that this is the most important offseason in their history?
It will be one of the, I don't think all these things will have to happen this particular year. It's a matter of when you sign, whoever you sign, they will keep in mind the next year. So they're going to have to allocate a portion of the pie this year if they sign Joe Burrow, for Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins. Although it's very important that we fully understand, they're not going to be able to sign everyone. It's just and when we look at it, Tee Higgins is probably, the guy that we feel who's less likely to get signed. And there's a number of factors, not just the money, not just the cap dollars, but more importantly, the fact that he's a solid number one player and he's a solid number one marketing player for other teams. So he wants those social media likes. He wants he wants that notoriety that comes with a number one. He deserves it. He has the talent. And when you look at it, you look at the fact that he did not make the Pro Bowl this year. He didn't make the Pro Bowl this year because he's on the team with Jamar Chase. And trust me, yours truly went through that with Eddie Browns, Chris Collinsworth, Rodney Holman, Ickey Woods. There's just a certain amount of accolades that can go around, and someone sometimes get, the short end of the stick. And Tee Higgins is going to be that person unless he finds another home, which I think he will.
It kind of reminds me a few years ago when you had AJ Green on the team, you had Marvin Jones Jr. on the team, you had Mohamed Sanu on the team, and Marvin Jones was considered a number one elsewhere, and he did end up going elsewhere. I wonder what Joe Burrow would think or have to say about losing a player, a target like Tee Higgins.
Sorry to see you go, but congratulations on getting your money back. It's going to be a situation where, listen, I've answered this question so many times. I feel like I'm Joe Burrow. Will Joe Burrow take give a hometown discount? I'm going, hell no. There's no way.
He doesn't need to do that. No.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do it, number one. And what people don't seem to understand, it affects the entire National Football League salary structure. Right. It's built on a system where you're constantly climbing up, and you don't want anyone to pause or go down, especially a Joe Burrow. He's going to set the market, not just for the quarterbacks. He's going to set the market for other players as well. He's going to set the franchise tag. So there's more to it than just him saying, I'm going to save a couple bucks so they can sign player A or player B or player C. I don't think that will happen. If it does, he's going to hurt and make more people unhappy than he will make people happy. It would be kind of a selfish, I want the Bengals to be happy, but the other 31 teams of their players will be hurt drastically.
I feel like it's kind of a thing where he understands what he brings to the table for the Cincinnati Bengals. He understands his value. And I think it's honestly crazy to think that Joe Burrow would be the type of person to take a hometown discount. He is too smart. He's got his master's degree. He's a finance guy too. Like, I think he would have been a finance bro if he never, came up in the NFL world. I think it would be insane to suggest that he should take a hometown discount to stay in Cincinnati.
Yeah, if you look at the difference between a Joe Burrow and a Lamar Jackson, who both are going to make mega dollars, Joe Burrow has the protection of an agent that he can sit there and go, what? I let them take care of it. I don't know, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just out here playing. I got to throw touchdowns. I got to focus on. And then when he goes home, gets in his car, he calls his agent, go, hey, how much, where are we? And then he gets back in front of the media like he's supposed to do. And he says, I'm going to let my agent handle that. And my fathers are going to handle that. They'll let me know when the numbers are there because they've already talked about what type of numbers they're looking to get and their expectations. And of course, the Bengals are going to, I wouldn't even think, I would hope and pray that the Bengals would not even lowball them. I mean, Joe Burrow is the face of the Cincinnati Bengals. Without him, we go back to the days of prayer and wishful thinking and losing streaks and dark ages. And he's the sunshine for the organization, for the stadium, for the community. I mean, he just brings a lot of positive energy towards the city of Cincinnati and the surrounding area. So I just hopefully they wouldn't risk it. I don't think they will, but hopefully it wouldn't.
I don't think they would risk it either. It seems like they really, really like Joe Burrow. And I'm going to run this by you because I put this out on Twitter a few weeks ago and people were not happy with me when I said this. But Joe Burrow made this franchise relevant again because they slipped down into this hole where, nationally the Cincinnati Bengals were not relevant. Outside of 2015, after that year, they really weren't relevant. And now Joe Burrow has made this team a must talk topic in the NFL world and on NFL shows. Like, he is the reason why they are in this position, I think.
Well, first of all, welcome to my world of people disagreeing with you when you just tell them what reality looks like. A lot of people just don't want to.
The truth hurts sometimes, I think.
Exactly, and especially when you're very honest about even your passion of your team. He has brought them, and when I say he's brought them back to relevancy, it's the fact that people are talking about Joe Burrow all over the world. Yes. And that has put Cincinnati on the map. Back in the day, yes, when Marvin Lewis, they went to a couple of playoffs. They didn't win playoff games. And but it's been so long and it was so much negative vibes around the Bengals. When the Bengals was mentioned, it was usually something in a negative nature. When a highlight was on, we were part of the highlight in the low light area. But now, we got Joe Cool. We got him on Sports Center. We have him up in lights. We have him, I'm down here in Florida. And when you walk around, you see him on the direct TV stuff. So if someone doesn't understand that what he's done in catapulting the entire organization from a PR standpoint and a marketing standpoint and just a pride standpoint, you and I both know, you travel the world. I will wear, Mickey and I had on our bingo uniform stuff the other day. I was really thinking about wearing my entire uniform, including the pants, the helmet, the jersey, and everything. It's like, but now you do have that sense of pride. We were walking down Fort Lauderdale Beach Boulevard, and people were going, "Go Bengals! Who they? Trust me, I would have never committed an assassination attempt, or also known as suicide, 10 years ago by wearing a Bengals uniform. Yes, he's done that, and anyone who thinks differently, they really need to go get their minds checked because they're not very smart to not recognize that.
He really has made this franchise cool around the world, and I totally agree with you on that. I want to talk for a second about the coaches because Brian Callahan has had now 2 interviews in Indianapolis. Lou Anarumo's had an interview with the Cardinals, and then Troy Walters interview with the Texans. I mean, you expect that when your team is good, more coaches get more opportunities. and they get more opportunities to get in front of new faces and show their philosophies to different people and get those key interviews that could elevate them in the NFL world. What do you think what position would the Cincinnati Bengals be in if they lost, key coaches like Brian Callahan and Lou Anarumo at this stage?
I would say there's a significant difference between the two, and Brian Callahan can and could be. I would say could be replaced easily, and that's not a demeaning his abilities. I'm saying he doesn't mean as much. I have said this, and we've been on many shows years, and I thought Coach Lou was absolutely horrific in his first year. I thought they were terrible, but he plugged and played with the talent that he needed for his system, and he's turned it around. And now I am his biggest fan. Matter of fact, I started the Lou Anarumo fan club. Yeah, fan club. I'm the president. I'm not the owner. I'm the president. And he has one of his best friends lives down here, because actually he lives down here in Fort Lauderdale. And I got that reputation. I went from firing the guy to saying this guy needs a job as a head coach. No question about that. So if you look at the Bengals organization top to bottom, Joe Burrow being number one. Personally, I think Lou Anarumo is number two. I think he has been the glue of that football team. And of course, it's not sexy. And, he doesn't have, and one thing he doesn't have, he may have the mind of a defensive genius. He puts the guys in but the dude don't have any charisma. He's like -5 in the charisma category. I'm like, Lou, smile a little bit, show people that you're not a, robot.
He strikes me as someone who is just hyper focused. Like he is always, he doesn't have time for this little chit chat, whatever is happening, socially, whatever. He is laser focused on the next task at hand.
If you know how silly I am, I'll see him one day. And when I see him, I'm going to ask him, in your contract, does it call for you not to smile? If you smile, will you get fined or something or suspended? Because I've never seen a coach that never seems to be happy. But that's his focus. But again, back on focus is the guy, in my very strong opinion, if the Bengals lose him, I think it can get ugly very fast, because the players love that guy. They love to play for him. They go the extra mile for him. They'll run through walls for him. And his strategy of his hybrid type defense, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, you name it. These guys couldn't. Josh Allen, the best of the best, could not figure it out. So why wouldn't you, if you're an owner looking for a head coach, why wouldn't you want someone like that to be your head guy? So I'm a big fan, and I think that would be, potentially catastrophic if they lose him.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge detriment to their defense as well. And I'm looking at other guys that I personally really like in the locker room as well, and I like how they fit his system. Bates, Pratt, Bell. If you were to look at those three guys, which one would you say is the most important for the Bengals to keep on next season?
Well, it's kind of a trick question, and here's the reason why. Jessie Bates and Von Bell are one. They're so synced. They're one.
I know, it's crazy.
You can't. If you separate them, they probably wouldn't be as good as they are collectively. Okay. And Jermaine Pratt has had one hell of a year. The last couple of years, he's been very solid.
Yeah.
I think Jessie Bates is your signal caller back there. He's the guy that sees everything that happens in front of him. Unfortunately, it looks like he'll be the first to go. And then now you got to look at this situation where, Vaughn is custom made for Lou's defense, how he would react to Jesse leaving, and can he get on the same page as the new free safety coming in? But Jermaine Pratt, I just think they gotta sign him. This team cannot afford turnover right now. You saw what happened when they had injuries on both sides of the ball. They just cannot afford turnover. But part of being successful is that people come and pluck your players, because that's how you got successful.
Right, I totally agree, and I think that, they're not, they're rather thin, I would say, at linebacker, and I think Jermaine Pratt has given them stability at that position, and I think that he adds so much, and I don't really read into what the players who are entering free agency, like, I know that they are always going to be asked, "Is this your last time, entering Paycor Stadium? Do you think you'll be back?" I don't read into that because I don't think that they actually know.
And they don't. I can guarantee you they don't know. They have no idea because, again, their agents are going to tell them at least what their market values are.
Right.
And they will determine within that 5% plus 5 minus 5, will they take a little bit, a little bit less to stay there, or if someone offers them significant money, they got to take it. I mean, you remember something. This is a short-lived sport that anything can happen on any play, as we definitely witnessed at Paycor Stadium with DeMar Hamlin. So you have to take your money back, and if it's with another team, you take it, and typically players look at it from, can I win? What's the system like? Is the city or somewhere I like? Somebody will probably go to a Miami before they go to a Minnesota. So, trust me, players factor all that in. It's like, okay,
where do you want to live? Right.
If Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay may not be able to fulfill a roster, because who wants to, live in Green Bay for 6, 7, 8 months? It is what it is. I'm sorry. It's just like, hey, it's Miami. You got your New York, your California, LA. Those are always going to be the team that people desire.
Well, and I have a final question for you. I wanted to know, because I know that, once the season ends and players go through those last, turning everything in, their last meetings, cleaning out their lockers, they start planning a getaway. They get away with their families. When you were a player and the season ended, what did you do? Did you have a list of things you wanted to do? Did you immediately, on 3, Cancun? Did you go to Cancun right away? What did you do?
It's funny because the years that we were going to the playoffs, you did not want to, honestly, you did not want the season to end. And
right.
If you were superstitious, which 99.9% of the players are, you don't want to plan ahead, because you start thinking that, well, if we start calling this and you start planning this trip, that means we're going to end up going on the trip. So let's just hold off on that. But if you were out of the playoffs, hell, your car was already shipped. Your stuff is already packed. The trip has already started. You're like, okay, we got a 1:00 game. It ends at 4. We can get to the airport by 6:30. By 8:00 that night, we will be in the Bahamas. And guess what? I will not be thinking about football one lick until we have to go back there. It is mentally draining. It is mentally, the intensity. Imagine if you had a job where I see this in my daughter, Lanisa, who's the doctor, the orthopedist at UC Medical. Imagine having a job where the intensity starts and never lets up for 5 months.
Yeah, the whole time.
You need to get the hell away. I mean, you need to reset. You must reset. You must reset for your family. You must reset for yourself. You must reset for football. And then you come back refreshed, because again, you're pouring so much of yourself into it, not just mentally, but we know physically. And you're sitting on an island and you're like, okay, you go to the island, you and your husband go on the island, you sit back and relax. I'm on the island with an ice pack on my knee and on my shoulder and my neck. And the people are like looking at you like, look at this weirdo. Well, I am weird, but the reason I'm weird is because I play football.
I feel like I do connect to that in some way, just because my husband works in college basketball, and the intensity from, I swear, October to April is nonstop. Like, we do not plan anything until maybe 5 days before we know that something's going to happen. Like, the season has ended and he knows that he is going to have this week off. And it's 2 weeks after the season has already ended. We never plan anything ahead ever in this house.
And like I said, it's almost an insult. Your wife says, okay, well, if we don't win, we'll do this. You're like, what?
Oh, we do not have those discussions here.
Said that. It's like, no, we can't think that way. But consequently, when you're 4-10 going into the last couple of games, you're like, okay, call the movers, call the car shipping, we're out of here. And it's worse with the guys that don't live in town. when they don't live in town, they go move into a hotel for the last couple of weeks. It's like, well, I guess that player is checked out, but it's totally natural.
Well, Tim, I appreciate you joining me for the final episode of the OT for this season. Hopefully you will join me next season. And I know you're in a warm place. I can see that you are in a warm place. I will now shift my focus to college basketball. What are you shifting your focus to?
Nothing. Absolutely not. I still have a player's mentality. It's my off season now.
You're out.
I'm down here healing. I'm mentally
okay.
healing. I need the raise. Ooh, I need the raise.
Get that sun, get that vitamin D, and enjoy your family.
Yeah, look at this skin tone. I really need some sun, huh? Yeah.
I could personally use a lot of sun right now, but I'm going to hang out in Cincinnati in this 20-degree weather instead.
Well, you enjoy it.
I will. You enjoy the sun for me, please.
I will do that.
Thank you so much, Tim. And if you are watching, thank you for joining us all season long on the OT, and we will see you next season as it picks up in training camp.